next up, we have Redhilll BioPharma, the CEO and chairman, Dror Ben Asher, is here. Mr. Ben Asher, how are we doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderfully. I'm very glad to have you here at the Small Cap Conference. Would you mind giving folks a brief introduction to yourself and what you're doing over at Redhilll BioPharma?
Absolutely, Neil. But a quick question about the guitar behind you. Are you playing sometimes while being online? Or yes.
This is so when I'm doing Zoom meetings at Benzinga, I like to turn off my webcam and turn off my microphone, and then I'm practicing death metal songs on that Ibanez mostly. Yeah, I use that one for the most part, and then this other one over here, that's a Jackson with the Floyd Rose. I just use that one to make loud squealy sounds. So really no music coming out of that one.
Nice. Yeah, I'm a bit old-fashioned Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers kind of guy.
Oh, so, nice.
Yeah.
I love Patti Smith.
Patti Smith, Tom Petty. Yeah, Tom Petty. I'll tell you a little bit about the company. Let me share my screen. Wonderful. So why don't I provide you with a quick overview? Let's say 10 to 15 minutes, and we'll take questions thereafter. Is this okay, Neil?
It's more than okay.
Yeah. Sounds good. So a few words to begin with. I know a lot of folks are eager to hear about our very advanced opaganib pill for COVID-19. So before I go into the overview, if okay for you, what I will do, I will tell you a little bit about the status of this program, which we started actually just over a year ago, around March 2020, and have achieved a lot since then. So what we have been doing in this year or so is we have completed a phase 2 study in the United States successfully with opaganib for hospitalized patients with COVID-19. We have also shown a complete inhibition of the virus. We have initiated compassionate use treatments in Israel and Switzerland, and most recently in another European country. We have also struck several manufacturing agreements, completed several independent committee reviews of our study, our phase 2/3 study, which we are about to complete. So I'm happy to let everybody know that we are about 95% enrolled in this study, which is ongoing currently in 10 countries. We're initiating to get over the finish line United States sites and Peruvian sites as we speak, on top of the existing 8 countries in which the study is already ongoing. So very exciting development, about to get over the finish line. We complete enrollment in the next week or two, all goes well, and should be able to announce the results shortly thereafter. To remind everybody, we are a publicly traded company, therefore we cannot make any representation or warranty as to the accuracy of the information. Who are we? We are a US specialty company, specialty pharma company. We are headquartered in Raleigh, North Carolina. We are primarily focused on commercialization and development of GI drugs and drugs for infectious diseases. And we have a very strong US commercial footprint and a robust development pipeline. If you look at our pipeline, at the very top you see our commercial assets, Talicia for H. pylori infection, which we developed in-house at Redhilll. I'll talk about that in a moment. Movantik, which we acquired from AstraZeneca last year for opioid-induced constipation, and Mkolo for traveler's diarrhea. As far as our development pipeline, we cannot talk too much for lack of time, but I'll mention RHB204 for NTM disease with a phase 3 US study ongoing, as well as RHB104 for Crohn's disease, which successfully completed a phase 3 study in Crohn's patients. potentially the best results ever generated in a Crohn's study phase 3 by any company. I know a lot of people are interested in our COVID program. So if we look at the bottom 2 rows, you see Opaganib, which is currently completing a phase 2/3 study that I mentioned globally in 10 countries, as well as RHB-107, which is another phase 2/3 study program that we are running for COVID-19. The main difference between them is that Opaganib, the study is focused on hospitalized patients, and RHB-107 is focused on outpatient patients. This means that we are potentially covering the whole spectrum, meaning a vast majority of the patients suffering from COVID-19. A little bit of perspective on this. Many companies have been trying, and there have been thousands of studies that have been completed, ongoing, starting now for COVID-19. But to the best of our understanding, no company, including Big Pharma, has completed a phase 2/3 study or is as advanced as Redhilll is with an oral novel molecule for COVID-19 in programs that are running in the United States. We are not aware of a single company that has been that advanced. The closest that we are aware of is a Pfizer pill that is just beginning its first study. I believe they started back in March. So Redhilll is the very forefront of research for COVID-19, despite having limited resources, and we are very proud of that. We have been working day and night, continue to do so with a highly motivated small team. Where are we heading? Redhilll is rapidly growing with 3 assets that we are promoting already. We are doing so with a sales force of 100 highly motivated, excellent field force, including another 30 people in field support. So a total of 130 people in the field already promoting 3 products with growing revenues. In 2020, we generated over $60 million relative to 2019, where we generated hardly any revenues. What will happen is continued growth through both organic growth, meaning out of our own pipeline, as well as non-organic growth, meaning acquisition of products such as the acquisition of Movantik from AstraZeneca. In the coming years, Redhilll will become one of the leading specialty pharma companies in the United States. Market cap is approximately 300 million, and cash balance as of the last reported date, March 4th, was approximately $100 million. Revenues have been growing, as I mentioned earlier. We are currently generating over 20 million a quarter, relative to hardly anything in 2019, and this is despite the pandemic. A little bit more about Opaganib, which I mentioned earlier. Currently completing enrollment in a global phase 2/3 study in 10 countries. Most likely the most advanced drug candidate in the world today for COVID-19. When it comes to orally administered, it's a pill, novel molecule, not a repurposed drug, that is in phase 2/3, advanced phase 2/3 study, including in the United States. What is critical to understand about Opaganib is that unlike the vast majority of drug candidates out there for COVID-19, it has a dual mechanism of action. It means it's not only antiviral and works against the virus, but also it's anti-inflammatory. So this dual action is exactly what is needed for COVID patients. What's more, the mechanism is unique in that it targets the host cell, meaning the cell, the human cell, as opposed to the virus itself. What this means is that potentially what we expect Opaganib to do is to target and resist resistance developing from the virus, by the virus, through existing mutations and new mutations. We all hear about the South African mutation, the Brazilian, India, and so on. We expect opaganib, based on its mechanism, to be able to treat COVID-19 with all these mutations and future mutations as well. We have the ongoing phase 2/3 study, which is about to be completed. I mentioned that. And we also have a positive phase 2 study from a study that we completed in the United States with opaganib for COVID-19. Opaganib completely inhibits SARS-CoV-2, which is the virus that causes COVID-19. In fact, it demonstrated the most potent activity versus all compounds that we tested, including remdesivir. The current study is 464 subjects in 10 countries, as I mentioned. The primary endpoint is the proportion of patients reaching room air. And we have already passed 4 independent committees that looked at the data, and one of them even looked at the efficacy data. A few words about the phase 2 study that we completed with opaganib in the United States for COVID-19 hospitalized patients. We have shown greater improvement by opaganib in the proportion of patients reaching room air. This is important. The numbers are very interesting, 52% versus 22%. We have shown also greater improvement in the proportion of patients with 50% reduction in supplemental oxygen, 89% versus 66%, and higher proportion of patients that have been discharged at 73% versus 55%. Lastly, a greater reduction from baseline of the median total oxygen requirement, 68% versus 46%. I did mention that we have 2 shots on goal, both of them very advanced clinical stage for COVID-19. RHB-107 is our second compound. It's also a pill, orally administered novel compound with a unique mechanism of action. We are currently conducting a phase 2/3 study in the United States in a COVID-19 outpatient setting. Without dwelling too much on this, I will mention that RHB-107 does have a significant human database that includes about 200 patients in various studies, primarily in oncology studies. And we expect this drug to address a very significant market, outpatient market, which is far larger than the hospitalized patients market in COVID-19, with a primary endpoint of time to sustained recovery. This basically means that we expect RHB-107 to help the patients improve faster on their symptoms. We also demonstrated potent inhibition of the virus with RHB-107. Moving quickly to our commercial assets, Movantik, which we acquired from AstraZeneca back in April last year, indicated for opioid-induced constipation. This is one of the most common side effects of opioid therapy. 40% or even more of patients suffer from that. So it's a very meaningful indication and helps patients in a meaningful way because they suffer a lot from constipation while using opioids. Movantik is well covered by commercial access, managed care by the insurance companies. Moving on to Talicia, which we developed in-house at Redhilll. We have launched the product last year. It was approved by FDA in the end of 2019 and launched into COVID effectively with a field force in July last year. So we are just starting. What is critical to understand is that this infection is affecting more than half of the world's adult population. I repeat this, more than half of the adults in the world are suffering from this bacteria, vast majority of them without knowing them. And about 2 million patients are treated in the US alone every year. And we have very healthy national coverage by insurance companies of about 170 million people. The problem with H. pylori is that it's a carcinogen, group 1 carcinogen. It's the strongest risk factor for gastric cancer. And gastric cancer, unfortunately, is killing about 700,000 people annually. In the US population, it is estimated that about 100 million Americans, roughly 1 out of 3 Americans, is positive with H. pylori. We have been promoting in the field Talicia for the last half a year or so, and we are seeing meaningful growth despite the various challenges, very meaningful challenges that are presented by the pandemic. For pharma as a whole, specifically for product launches and specifically for products such as Talicia that require diagnostic testing prior to prescription. But we have shown significant growth, and we expect to show even faster growth later this year as the pandemic gradually goes away. We have healthy commercial coverage. I mentioned this already. What I want to mention about the uniqueness of Talicia is that it has been shown to be about 90% efficacious in patients that actually adhere to the medication, at least partially. And what this means is that they actually took the drug, or at least part of the drug, during the study. In all comers, meaning patients that took the drug or didn't take the drug or partially took the drug, in our study, 84% efficacy, very high efficacy with Talicia in eradicating H. pylori in our US study. What is very important to understand is that Talicia overcomes resistance, which is currently very high and growing fast among the antibiotics most commonly used for the treatment of H. pylori. So this is a key differentiation. We are very comfortable with our data, very comfortable with our mechanism of action, and we believe that Talicia is well on its way to become the standard of care.
Beautiful, Dror. And we are at time, so final remarks.
Absolutely. So let me say this. To sum up, Redhilll is a specialty pharma company, rapidly growing. We are aiming to continue to go it alone. We have everything in place, including 3 products that we are promoting, very advanced pipelines here in red arrows, as you can see. We know what we are doing. We have a highly motivated team. We are going places, and this will be evidenced by our performance in the coming quarters and years. Happy to take any questions if there are.
I don't think we have time for questions, but where can folks direct questions if they'd like to email you?
Right. So our general email is info@redhillbio.com. You will always find us responsive. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you very much, Dror. Wonderful presentation. Thank you for your time, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend, too.